It was in the winter of 1590 that the unhappily married King of France, Henry IV, was introduced to his head equerry Bellegarde's fiancée, Gabrielle d'Estrées. The king was instantly smitten with a 17-year-old beauty who was 20 years his junior. He prompted Bellegarde to quit pursuing Gabrielle if he wanted to have a career after all. Gabrielle d'Estrées was born in 1573 into a French noble family with a tarnished reputation. Her mother left the family when Gabrielle was 10 years old to live with her new lover. Afterwards, Gabrielle and her sisters grew up at her aunt Isabel's household, who was also known for having affairs. Despite the family's reputation, Gabrielle landed a promising match with Bellegarde, and she already pictured herself as the future Duchess of Bellegarde when the aging King of France thwarted her plans. In the beginning, Gabrielle turned down all of the king's advances as she was repelled by him. Even after her ambitious aunt tried to convince the young woman to give in to the king's pleas, she refused. Eventually, Gabrielle was married off by her father to the Baron of Bernay without her consent. Facing life in an unhappy marriage, Gabrielle reconsidered her options and finally gave in to King Henry's courtship in 1591. The infatuated king was over the moon to have his beloved by his side. However, when Gabrielle arrived at his court, she rekindled her relationship with the former lover Bellegarde. The love triangle at the French court would leave the jealous king desperate. He would write numerous love letters to his mistress, begging her to let go of her other lover. While Gabrielle used to be known as an immature, capricious girl in the beginning, she changed drastically between 1593 and 1594. Over the years, she had matured into a woman, which led her to let go of Bellegarde and focus on her position as a mistress. From then on, she got involved in the king's administrative affairs and became his trusted advisor. Even though she was notorious for her excessive spending and love for everything expensive, Gabrielle was also capable of sacrifices. When another war with Spain broke out in 1597, the French treasury was already empty from funding other conflicts. The royal mistress did not hesitate to barter away most of her belongings to support the war efforts. She even went as far as urging the richest noblemen in the country to contribute financially to support the war. Eventually, France would win the war and King Henry would reward his mistress with more fortune than she ever sold. By that time, the couple had welcomed 3 children into their family. Everything could have been perfect, but the king was still married to Margaret of Valois, who had been detained for years due to her disloyalty towards the king. In 1598, negotiations concerning the dissolution of the unhappy match were continued and finalized in 1599, resulting in the annulment of the marriage. Henry's ministers were delighted, considering the marriage had been childless. While the whole court was already discussing which royal daughter in Europe would be suitable to become the next Queen of France, the king didn't even consider this option. Soon, it became evident to the court that the king was planning to put his mistress Gabrielle in the position of the queen. Over the years, he had awarded her with multiple noble titles, appointed her family into prestigious positions, showered her with fortune, and legitimized all of the children. All there was left to do was to take Gabrielle as his wife and make her the Queen of France, and Henry was determined to do so. Against all odds, and to the horror of the French court, the king announced his engagement to Gabrielle, and the wedding date was set for the 15th of April 1599. By that time, Gabrielle was pregnant yet again, but unlike her other pregnancies, this one was difficult and the soon-to-be queen was nervous like never before. After consulting various fortune tellers, she had heard one bad prophecy after another. When the wedding month of April came around, Gabrielle and Henry were supposed to spend their last days before the ceremony separately. The couple boarded the ship together to reach their different estates, but when Henry was trying to leave the ship at his destination, Gabrielle lost it. She had a nervous breakdown and was almost inconsolable. One can only speculate if she had a misgiving. Eventually, Gabrielle would move on to stay with friends in the days before her wedding. However, her health would take a toll over time. She was having horrendous cramps through her whole body and suffered from severe pain. After horrendous suffering, she would birth a stillborn son and die in the following hours, only 26 years old. It is believed that Gabrielle suffered from eclampsia during her final hours. While there was no evidence of foul play, the timing and cruelty of her death let speculation loose on whether the almost queen was poisoned. Whatever the case, King Henry was grief-stricken, while the French appeared to be relieved that the disagreeable wedding was averted. The final goodbye to Gabrielle was worthy of a queen. Henry gave her the funeral of a royal, as her coffin was transported amidst a procession of the highest nobles of the country. Suspicions concerning Gabrielle's death would remain, but no evidence would ever be found.